How's everybody doing? This is Attorney Kyle Brown with Protect Your Art, and we back for another session. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for coming in right now, and I'm gonna shout out everybody in the chat. If you haven't watched our first episode, it was a really great episode. I call it a class because it's like a series. So make sure you go in and you check it out. And let me go in and shout everybody out. I see Barbino. Beats, I see Rizzy A Beats, Booth on the Beat, Justin, Abraham, KP Bot, Booth again, Cloud9 Music. I just really appreciate y'all checking in. What's up, Ocho Saucy, Ben, Lapin, Trax Phantom, Mad Rat Music. Keep them coming in. Drop your go up in the chat. Also, make sure you bring in people. So send a link to your friends to spam them. Let them know that we're about to do something legendary. And I just want to let you all know that today we're going to be focusing on something that's very important. On our last episode, we talked about intellectual property. And now we finna tap into one of the more important components of intellectual property, which is copyrights. So I want to queue up a video to get us started and just to get us flowing, and then we'll jump right into it. Just something that'll get you all, thinking a little bit of more about intellectual property and copyrights. So we're ready for that video.
LVMH's Moet Hennessy is buying a 50% stake in rap star Jay-Z's champagne brand Armand de Brignac. It's the latest luxury brand to try to broaden its appeal with a celebrity tie-up. In a statement, the Empire State of Mind rapper said he's proud to welcome the Arnault family, which runs LVMH, into the partnership. Financial terms of the deal, which was reported earlier by the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and New York Times, were not disclosed. Historic luxury brands around the world have been striking partnership deals with celebrities. The trend reveals they're seeking to appeal to younger customers, with Jay-Z's pop star wife Beyoncé already involved in the Ivy Park sportswear brand.
Perfect. So the purpose of that video was just to kind of bring us, home and to kind of go into what we talked about in the last segment, which is your intellectual property. Jay-Z has been making some very key splashes within the past 2 weeks. I know we all saw his deal with Ace of Spades. I know we all saw his deal with Square to purchase his ownership stake in his company Tidal. And last week we went into talking about intellectual property and how our intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate. You're going to hear me continuously say that every time we have, our sessions. Your intellectual property is no different than your pieces of real estate. That's just our first video. We can go into our next slide. But your intellectual property is no different than your pieces of real estate. For everybody that's new here, the purpose of Protect Your Art and the purpose of this course is to introduce students to legal, business, creative aspects of the entertainment industry. Entertainment law consists of a broad array of core legal issues combined with the relationship issues that relate to producing and protecting entertainment products and talent. Kyle, what does all of that mean? What it all means is we have so many people here that love to make music, that love to produce, that love to write songs, that love to record songs. But it is very important that we understand how to make sure that we, protect our art and that we understand the core functions of the legal business. And that's the purpose of Protect Your Art. It's going to teach you how to do that and put you in a position to, if you ever get yourself in a situation where you may need an attorney or where you're, considering a deal, you will at least have a foundation as to what to do. We can go into the next slide now. And please make sure that you, download your session guide. It's going to be at www.beatstars.world/protectyourart. And that'll have all of the information that we talked about from the previous session and this current session. So just a recap of what we talked about last time. And if you all have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'll answer them as they pop up, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit more. So last time we talked about patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets for everybody that was here. We also talked about the value, how we value our intellectual property. We talked about the purpose of protecting and registering your intellectual property. We also talked about intellectual property is no different than pieces of real estate. That is very, very important. Anybody that you know that's in the music business right now, I challenge you right now while you're watching this to text them and just to let them know intellectual property is no different than pieces of real estate. And then the last thing that we've been doing, we've been having office hours every week. And some of them, I'm just going to go through some of the questions that have came up. One of the questions have been, "Hey Kyle, what's up, man? What if I have a beat that I produced, and there's an artist and they're using my beat, but I can't get in contact with them. I haven't received any royalties or anything like that. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm compensated for my work?" The best thing that you can do, and the first thing that you can always do, is to make sure, one, you have your intellectual property protected. What does that mean? Make sure you have your copyrights registered. Make sure you have everything documented. Once you're in that position and you have the power and the leverage, then I will literally send them a message like, "Hey, Lil John from the East Side, what's up, man? My name is such and such. I know you. I really admire your song. It's really great. The work on the production work was done by me and my team. I would like to have a conversation with you as to how we can work forward in the future, and also talk to you about what I can do to make sure that we're compensated for our work on that particular track." Once you do that, you've extended the olive branch to let them know, like, "Hey, this is my work, this is my beat, and I just want to make sure that we're getting compensated. And not only that, but let's not just make this a one-time thing. Let's make it something in the future." So also, we had a question about, Kyle, how does publishing work? I know that's a big, big question. How does publishing work? Like, I spoke with someone for probably about 30 to 45 minutes, which I encourage you all to do. We just had literally a conversation about publishing. And the thing about it is, publishing is kind of confusing, but it's super, super simple. If you boil it all down to publishing is basically the underlying composition of the sound recording. So what you have two things. You have, on one side, you have the sound recording. So that could be the beat, that could also be the lyrics, and then on the others, the sound recording, you have the actual sound recording which was recorded. Then you have the publishing part, which is the lyrics and the beat. So both sides have their own copyright, right? So the sound recording, which is generally called a master, that has its copyright. And then the beat and also the lyrics, the composition, the underlying composition, which is the beat, and then the lyrics, they have their copyright. That's generally your publisher. So what happens is, and this is something that I wanted to encourage all of my producers here, and it's just a thought, and definitely, Bufo, we can do a walkthrough of how to register and upload a batch of beats. We'll talk more about that. But I want to encourage my producers on here, and it's a thought. But the same way that artists release music on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, and all of these different places, I would encourage producers, because it's a lot of producers doing it already. I know a lot of producers leave their music, whether it's on a selling platform where they sell their beats, but you also have a right, even though you want to get publishing on a particular beat, you also have a right, and we're going to talk more about it, as a sound recording for that beat. What that means is, when you have beats, say you create a beat, you can license that beat out to someone, and that person can come and they can use that beat and put their lyrics over it and create a new master. But you, as the controller of that underlying composition, that's also its own master, and you can put that beat out on Spotify, you can put that beat out on Apple Music, or put that beat anywhere you would like it to go. So what I would encourage you to do, and for if you have producer friends, start thinking more about, not only selling your beats online, but if you're already licensing your beats out, think about, putting your beats out on Spotify, just like you would a regular track, putting them out on YouTube, which you probably already do, and generating streams of income that way. And we can go to the next slide. We'll talk more about copyrights and different things like that as to why you should do that. So this is very, very interesting, right? So this is kind of these are all copyrights. The first one here we see is the picture of Michael Jackson. So Thriller has sold 66 million albums worldwide, right? Which is crazy if you think about the amount of revenue that's generated. The second picture is A White Christmas. That's the all-time highest selling single of all time with 50 million singles sold. And then right here we have Infinity War, which grossed $2.79 billion dollars in revenue. So when you think about all of these different things and you look at each of these, what you see is the basis of what these are copyrights. The Thriller album is a copyright. The single is a copyright, and this movie is also a copyright. So what that does is not only can they use the copyright to make remakes, to have samples, to record, to do all of these different things, or to make movies or to make other content, but they're protected, and people know, like, when you see that cover, when you see Michael Jackson, you know that Michael Jackson's Thriller. You can't just use that picture. You can't just use the songs any kind of way, because you're putting the world on notice that this is my art. So I challenge you all to make sure that when you're doing different things, you're using all of the tools out there for you, which is copyright protection, because you never know when you're going to create the next Thriller album. You never know when you're going to create the biggest single, and you never know when you could possibly create the biggest movie. And we have some of the largest singles in the world, record-wise, that have been created on our platform, which is BeatStars. So just make sure that you're protecting yourself, protecting your art, because who knows, next year this time you may be up on this slide. So we can move to the next slide and get more into our lesson. So this is what we're talking about today, right? We're talking about what is a copyright. What rights do you have because of your copyrights? I'm pulling up my notes too. In the notes, when I'm looking down, the notes that I'm using are literally the same exact notes that you all have on the website. So that is www.beatstarsworld. I think beatstars.world/protect your art. Yeah. And you can download the exact session guide that I use, and it'll help you get through, and it'll be a great reference for you. So the first thing is, what is a copyright? I'm going to read directly from it. Copyright protection exists in accordance with this title, original works of authorship, fixed in a tangible medium of expression, known or later developed, from which they can be perceived, reproduced, otherwise communicated, either directly or with the aid of a machine. What does all that even mean? This is what it means. A copyright is not an idea. My professor used to always tell us, ideas are as free as the air. This is what he used to do, free as the air. But a copyright is basically something that's fixed. So when I say it's fixed, you record something, say you record something, that becomes fixed, and that is a copyright. So what you have to do to make sure that you have a copyright, it can't just be an idea that you tell somebody about. It can't just be something, that you think about. It has to be fixed. So let me give you an example of that. Say you decide to make a beat and you get a melody, or say you decide to play an instrument or something like that. Until you actually fix that melody, fix that beat, or fix it in a fixed form, and the link to the notes is www.beatstars.world/protect your art, and we'll post the link right here so you can actually see the notes and follow along as well. It should pop up on your screen. But say you fix those that particular beat or that particular melody or something like that, then at that point you have a copyright, right? So I think it's very, very important to know that just because you have an idea, ideas are as free as the air. Meaning, if you have an idea or you have a thought and you throw it out there, someone could easily take your idea, right? So it's not necessarily your idea. But if you go in and you fix the idea in a tangible medium using some type of device, some type of machine, whether it's your iPhone, if you record it on your voice memo, whether you record it on a mic, whether you record it, you could record it and call it on somebody's answer machine and send that in, and that could be considered a copyright. But you have to make sure that whatever it is fixed in a tangible medium, and that you're prepared to defend and to show the world and put the rest of the world on notice, like, this is my particular work. So let's go to the next question. What rights do you have because of your copyrights? Right? The first thing that you have to know is that you have the right to reproduce. So I think here the best situation to explain this, and you guys let me know if you all heard of this in the chat. There was a very, very huge issue with Taylor Swift, right? So Taylor Swift, we all know she just recently won a Grammy. I believe she won Album of the Year at the Grammys for her album Folklore. I love Taylor Swift. She has great music. I also love Adele, but that's neither here nor there. But she recently had an issue and her masters were purchased, right? So what happens is she owned like we talked about earlier, there was two sides to the song, right? So you have the masters for the sound recordings, which is what you hear from Spotify. And then you also have the lyrics and the underlying composition or the beat. And she owned that, but her record label actually owned the masters. So what they did was they sold her masters away. So because Taylor Swift, and we're going to walk through this, because Taylor Swift owned the underlying composition and the rights on this side, here is what she could do, because she said, you know what? You guys are owning my masters, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create these songs over again and sell them since you want to sell them to me. So the first right that Taylor Swift has is the right to reproduce. What does that mean, Kyle? She could take the masters and she has the lyrics, she has the words. She could re-record those masters, right? Re-record those masters and issue them because her underlying composition and writers give her the right to reproduce. Second, again, she could produce derivative works. So say she wants to create a Christmas album with all of her older songs, she could do that because she has the right to produce derivative works. The third thing that she has a right to distribute copies. What does that mean, Kyle? She has a right to put her music out on Spotify. She has a right to put her music out on Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, any of these platforms that she wants to, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, AudioMac. She can put her music out there because she has a copyright. The fourth thing that she could do is she could perform her works publicly. That's very, very important. When you have a copyright, it gives you the opportunity and it affords you the chance to be able to perform your works publicly. So because she wrote these songs and she has everything, she can perform her works publicly. And the last thing that she could do is she can perform the work by digital audio transmission. So what does that mean? She can digitally, transmit her stuff via radio, whether it's Pandora, let's say it's an AM FM station. She can digitally transmit all of her audio works. So what happens is when you understand these things as a producer, as an artist, as a manager, it may be some managers on here. It may be some label people on here. It may be some people on here, that just trying to get a better understanding as to the purpose of intellectual property and the purpose of copyrights. When you register all of these different things, what happens is when you go and you look at the statutes, it gives you these certain rights. And when you go in and you understand these statutes and the certain rights you have, then you realize, you say, okay, you don't want to sell me my masters? You don't want to do this for me? I'll just re-record all my songs again. Oh, you don't want to let me buy back certain rights? I'll just re-record, produce them, do all these different things and make it so that I can exercise my rights. So that's very, very important. And you want to make sure you realize that the more and more that you do that, the more and more that you work, and the more and more that you create, everything that you create is like a piece of real estate. I'll say that multiple times throughout. And I want you all to be, champions of that when you're talking to people. If I ever run into one of you all, I want you to tell me, this is just like a piece of real estate. So every time you create a new derivative work, every time you create a new beat, every time you create a new lyric, a new song, a new melody, as long as it's in a fixed form, as in such a copyright, it's no different than a piece of real estate. And what does that mean, Kyle? A piece of real estate can be licensed out. It can be sold. And that is no different than what you all do here. So like I talked about last time, if someone has 1,000 pieces of real estate property or rental property, you make sure that you do all of those things. You get $1,000 in rent per each property. That's $1 million. You got 1,000 beats that you license out every month, and you get $1,000. per beat because you're this big time producer, that's $1,000,000. I see a question from D. Lee in the chat. Once you upload your music to Spotify, is it automatically copyrighted? No, it is not automatically copyrighted. However, you are putting people on notice that that is your music. And technically, a lot of times, and that's a great question, D. Lee, because this is something that comes up a lot. It's a thing, and I don't know if you all heard of it. It's called a poor man's copyright. If you heard of that, just spam in the chat and say poor man's copyright. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just gonna email myself these songs and never open them up again, and that's my evidence of my copyright. Or a lot of times, what you will see is, if you go to Spotify or say you distribute your music or whatever, you put your music and in the bottom, if you leave it blank, it'll just have like C 2019, C 2021, C this thing like this, and it'll have like a copyright sign, but that doesn't guarantee that you have a copyright. So there's no such thing as an automatic copyright for distributing, and there's also no such thing as a poor man's copyright. Never let anyone tell you that. There is no such thing as a poor man's copyright. Just because you email yourself a song and don't open it up doesn't mean you have to have a copyright. We're about to also talk about how do you protect it in the registration process, because this is what gives you a copyright. So, registration. You may register up to 10 unpublished works on one application for $85. What does that mean? So, say you got a batch of beats, 10 beats, and you just got done, and you just, you got that work, you just put your work in, you like, man, this some heat. These are the ones that are going to take me to the next level, but I want to make sure I protect myself. I want to make sure I protect myself before I send them out to everyone. What you have to do is you go into the registration, and I see Bufu asked about it. What I'll probably do is, and I probably can't do it here, but because it'll take a long time, I'll do something where I'll show you all, maybe a screen record to send out to the group, or we could post it on our YouTube or something like that to show you all how it works. And we're also working on something right now to help our community do that. So once we get that going, I'll make sure that I provide you all with that information. But to register, you can register either one song, one unpublished work, or you can register 10 unpublished works at one time within one application, and then all 10 of those beats, you will have a copyright registration. All 10 of those beats will be registered, and then you can, prove your ownership. And the purpose of registering your copyrights, listen to this, this is very, very important. In order to be able to bring a copyright infringement suit, I see the question, how much is it? The 10 unpublished works is $85. That's $85 in order for the 10 unpublished works. It's very, very important to make sure that you're welcome. It's very, very important to make sure that you, register your works, because if you don't register your works, you cannot file a suit. So in order to bring a copyright suit, one of the requirements or the prerequisites is to register your works. What does that mean? Say you got all your beats and they going hard, and you got the number 10. You see somebody stole your beat. They got the number 1 song on all the charts right now, and you're like, I'm going to sue them. The first question that's going to be asked, do you have a registered copyright? Or what'll happen is your lawyer, before they file something, hopefully they don't file anything without checking this, but say they do, they'll file a motion to dismiss to get you out of there, because they'll argue. They don't even have a registered copyright. You may argue, well, it's on Spotify, but guess what they're going to say? Not a registered copyright. So you got to have a registered copyright. Also, you also need to make sure that when you have a registered copyright, this is very, very important. Registering your copyright is not just for your protection, right? Just to be protected, but it's also important so that you have, and you're able to make sure that you have, you're entitled to statutory damages, right? So say the statute, I forget what it is, but the statute for copyright protection provides certain damages for your beats. So say your beats get ripped off 10 million times. Well, there's a damage in a specific number that's in the that's actually within the statute that says it's a formula. So it's like for every 10 million, for each infringement, you get paid this amount of money. But if you don't register your stuff, then you don't get paid. You're not going to be able to get those statutory damages, and you're also not going to be able to get in court. So I know that may be tough. I know that a lot of people they're like, I'm just going to keep doing it. But just like we all of our different things, whether it's BeatStars Academy, whatever it may be, everything that you're learning here, I want you all to think that your legal portion, which is just really investing in setting aside a little extra funds that you have to make sure that your beats are registered. Because if something blows up, something takes off, and you don't have a copyright, it's going to be harder for you to get in court, which is going to delay how long you're able to get paid. And a lot of people that prey on people, they know this person probably doesn't have a copyright. Or they can look it up. They can research, does this person have a copyright? And if you don't have a copyright, then it's going to take a long time for you to get what you need. So it's very, very important to do that. Let me check the chat for some questions to see what we have here. So let me see. I bet 1% of beats on YouTube are copyright. Any big artist could steal those and just say blank you, right? I mean, I think that's a really, really good question, because other than, content ID or what people do to put their stuff up online, I'm willing to bet it might be less than 1%. And that's just because people not saying they just don't know. Like, they just don't know. They think once they put their stuff out there and it's mine, or, I can prove that it's mine, they think that that's enough, but in all actuality, it's not. And as we're not just talking to, me, I'm not speaking to you all today as someone where you are now. I know all of you are talented. I know all of you all got heat. And the reason why you're on here is because you're going to go to the next level. It's only a matter of time when you get there. So I'm talking to you 5 years from now, when you're that big producer, that big artist, that big manager, that big label exec, and you want to be protected. And that's what you have to think about, So the biggest thing is to make sure that you do more research and figure out ways to register your beats and to make sure that you're protected. One of the really, really good things that I learned in my copyright law class is, and that's a good question. I'm gonna answer this one right. What if I copyright one beat pack with 50 beats, right? So this is what a lot of people refer to as, I've heard it called a song book. So people just put a bunch of songs together and they submit them in, right? People do this, and it's just like a lot of times, and I'm not giving you legal advice, but people use P.O. boxes for LLCs, right? And they don't get caught. However, if it was me and I was making sure that I was super protected, when I create beats, this is a way to do it. But I would also just look into seeing like, okay, if I can, I want to track them out this particular way. I want to name them so it's no misconception as to the name of these beats. And it's especially when the ones, when you got that one that you're going to think going to go. So I want to make sure that I would always want to make sure like I protect my best beats, at least the best ones that you're going to put out there and the ones that you're going to push and that you're going to send out, in the industry, or send to people, or try to get placed or do stuff like that. Please copyright those. Please figure out a way to copyright them, because if not, you're going to always look back and be like, man, he told me I should copyright my beat. So I always think about that. But this is one of the great protections that copyright gives you. You are able to, God forbid, say you die, right? And I know this is a morbid topic, but say something happens to you, correct? And you want to make sure you're protected and your family is protected. Copyrights, and I'm reading it straight from the statute. Works created after January 1st, 1978, copyright protection lasts for the life of the author plus an additional 70 years. What does that mean? So if something was to happen to you and you have a copyright, that copyright extends 70 years after your death, right? So that means that your family and everybody that you love and you care about and who you really doing this for can thrive after, you make your work, not only during the time you're living, but after the time you're living. So it's very, very important that you realize not only do you get, present protection, but you also get future protection within your copyrights. Let me check this chat out. This is from, can you still copyright a song performed on a licensed beat from a producer? Jeremy Brantley. What's up, Jeremy? Short story, Jeremy. Me and Jeremy went to college together. And we actually created a movie. Now I challenge you all to find that. We made a movie and a soundtrack, and it was okay. But definitely. So say you buy a licensed beat from Bufu, right? And Bufu sells you a beat. You buy a licensed beat. Bufu has his copyright on his underlying thing. So he'll have his copyright on a particular beat. And whatever his license dictates, that's how you all would split that up as far as the publishing goes. But now you have a new copyright, which will be called, a lot of times it'll either be called a master or the new master. So because this is the new master, because you've added your lyrics on top of Bufu's beat, then you're going to be fine, and you will have an actual new copyright, and that'll be your work that you control. So I think that's important to understand. You'll have that new copyright, and you'll be able to control that and work that yourself. Let me see. Can you still copyright a beat from other sample packs or loops from other artists? Again, you would have to look to see the licensing requirements within that license. But once you create a new work, say you got a loop, right? Say someone, you use a kit, and that kit has loops in it. You use the loop, you create a whole other thing. Look at their license, and basically to determine the percentage or the splits that you all would have to do within that license. But once you incorporate that loop and you create something new within that, if you're allowed to, that new work, which will also probably be called a new master or the new composition, and once you actually record it and actually put it out there, that new master, that will be your particular copyright to make sure that you own, right? So you wanna always make sure that you're doing that. Let me see. Copywriting is expensive. So this is one of these. This is a great comment, and this is one of those things, and we can debate it a little bit afterwards in the chat too. This is one of those things, just like you rather be caught with it than without, because what happens now, and we talked about this in the last live session, is there are so many hits being made right now because of the advent of TikTok, because of the advent of BeatStars, how we enable our creators to create, collaborate, to cook up, and to do different things. So you got people from major labels, you got people from independent labels, you got all of these different people coming in, and they're creating and they're creating and they're creating and they're creating. And it's just like playing the lotto. I mean, if you play the lotto for the rest of your life every day, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna strike at least or do something. So you want to make sure that regardless of what you got going on, that you're protected. So for you, if okay, you make a batch of beats, right? And you have a formula and you make it hits after hits after hits. Like Tracks fan, I'm saying, hits after hits after hits after hits. You have to trust in yourself to know, is my work valuable enough to be copyrightable? Like, I would say it is, because you never know what artist is going to jump on that beat or how that song is going to be interpreted. And next thing you know, you going to have people doing like this to your thing on TikTok, right? And you'll have a hit and it's out of there. So I always would encourage you to make sure that you copyright your work. I know it's expensive, but it's an investment. And just like we talked about, your work is no different than a piece of real estate. You have to invest in real estate. You got to fix it up. You got to paint it. You got to get it ready. You got to get it habitable. So that's the same thing with your beats. You have to invest in the marketing. You have to invest in telling people about it. You have to invest in giving out beats and doing certain things. So you just want to make sure that not only are you investing that way, but you're also investing in making sure that you're copywriting your work. So the next thing that we have been having a lot of questions about is samples, right? Samples. What about samples? samples are very, very important. And, throughout this process, I even went back and I was like, you know what? I want to learn more about samples. I know about samples from a legal aspect, right? But as far as the history of a sample, let's figure out a way to understand samples and to see why they are valuable and why people always having questions about samples, right? So I went back and I did a little digging, and this is what I found out. Samples were created in Jamaica in 1960s. So I'm guessing from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure it was samples out there before that. But popularized samples, like actually sampling stuff, you had these DJs and they were battling and they were going back and forth and they're digging in the crates and they're going and they're going and they're going and they're going back and forth, rocking and rocking. And that created a sampling culture, which then later spread to the US as people migrated to the States and moved throughout. And that's kind of where your sampling came from. So this was an interesting fact that I learned. The Fairlight computer music instrument was the first sampling machine, and it was $28,000. And this was in 1979. So back in the day, in order to sample something, and to do it properly and to be able to distribute it and to make sure that your sampling was up to par, there was $28,000 that you had to shell out. Now you don't have to do that. The third thing is sampling requires a license from the composer and the owner of the sound recording. So remember in the beginning we talked about sound recordings, and we also talked about the composer or the person that writes the underlying lyrics or created the underlying beat, right? So say I want to sample, I'm trying to think of my favorite song right now that I'm really interested, that I really, really been liking. What have I been listening to a lot? Okay, it's this guy right now. I think we're doing a challenge with him or just about his beats. This guy's name is Moray, right? Yeah, it says, wow, 28K. That's crazy. And yeah, digging. So say I want to sample Moray. Like he got a song, it's called Quicksand, right? I'm pretty sure most of y'all have heard it. I love that song. I run a lot. So if you ever follow me at Attorney Kyle, when I'm posting, I'm probably running because that's one of the songs that I love. So say Moray, you want to sample Quicksand by Moray, and you just really want to sample the lyrics from Moray, and you also you just want to make sure like you get his hook within your new work. Yeah, Quicksand. I love Quicksand. That's my song, right? So you want to sample that, and what you would have to do if Moray. Say Moray is an independent artist. I'm not sure, but I'm just using this as an example. And Moray is also his own publisher. So he publishes his sound record, his lyrics and his composition. And he also is the owner of his sound recordings, meaning he puts his own music out the same way most artists do now, independently. You can't just sample everything by hitting Moray up on the publishing side and being like, Moray, I found you on your ASCAP. How much to sample it? Just on this side. No, you would have to say, okay, on the sound recording side with the lyrics that he's putting out on Spotify, in the actual sound recording copyright portion, and then you would have to look at not only the copyright sound recording portion, but the publishing portion, the written lyric portion, and you would have to get a license for both sides. So a lot of times what happens with sampling is people don't understand that. So they may try to reach out and get, licenses for one side, not the other. Most people don't even get a license for anything at all, and it's very, very important that you do that. And also, in order to enforce your sampling rights, right, you need to have a copyright. Because if you have a copyright, this is one of the things that I didn't mention. When you copyright certain things, that copyright not only protects one side or the other, but when you go to the website, you'll see it. It protects the sound recording and it protects the composition all in one. So now you're getting those protections on both sides. So when you come through, say somebody wants to sample your stuff, you'll be good. You know what I mean? Because you control both sides and you have the proper rights to sample. Vice versa, if you want to sample somebody else's stuff, they would need to make sure they control both sides, or whoever controls either side, you get a license from them, because if not, that's where you have copyright infringement. Let's look at some of the questions in the chat. Let's see. When I hear samples, this is from Bufu. Bufo. When I hear samples, I don't think of sampling a song that's previously been released. I think of sample packs made by folks like Dream Life or Illmind. I feel it's a completely different ball game. Yeah, so and correct me if I'm wrong, but you should saying like, for example, say you want to sample a loop or something like that, or you hear something like on Splice or something like that, and you're sampling that. A lot of times, what happens with that is if you have a license with them, then within that license or within certain packs or within certain kits or certain things like that, you likely get a license to sample on both sides. However, it's very important. That's why I'm teaching you all this, to look for that specific language to make sure, hey, I do need to make sure that I'm protected and I do have the license and the sampling rights for both sides. But a lot of times with kits and different things like that, and this is not meant to be legal advice, this is just to tell you, read those licenses, read those agreements, so you're making sure that you have the certain rights and you have the protections. So when you're putting your stuff out, you're not getting a copyright infringement or you're not getting your stuff pulled down, because if you don't check that, then it's a lot of hurdles that you'll have to jump through later on. Somebody said Moray isn't here. No, I'm playing. Let's see what else we got. These rappers don't own their masters. You end up getting sued by the label. Exactly. That is very, very true. A lot of these artists, and that was just a reference on Moray, right? I was just making a guesstimation. A lot of times, artists may not own their masters, or they may not own their publisher, right? Or they may own one or the other, because a lot of times people sell that when they get, they sell those things when they, get advances or whatever, or they do certain deals or whatever. But that's very, very important to make sure that you, one, always read these licenses agreements. Always read it. Always read it. Check it. Read it. And as an attorney, sometimes what I do is I know a lot of agreements that we get are standard, but I cross-reference my agreements. So say I got an agreement, I'll control find in one agreement and look at it and put it in those words into a new agreement just to make sure everything matches up. But I always read these things because I want to make sure that we're protected, and that as a company, I make sure I do my best job to protect the community and stand up for you all. So when you're doing stuff with sampling, with copyrights, with clearances, with anything like that, always read your licensing agreements and always make sure you make your demands known as it pertains to sampling when you're working with stuff. Kanye West is a great example. He's another person that just won a Grammy. I'll probably get, a lot of feedback from this. I love his gospel album. It's very, very good. But there has been a lot of controversy around that album as it pertains to sampling, using certain samples and using certain things that may have not been cleared. And when you're, on your way up, like all of you are, to be a great artist, to be a great producer, to be a label owner, to be a record executive, to be a mogul, it's very important that you use and you understand all of these things, because you're going to likely come across an issue with sampling. I mean, it's inevitable. You're probably already have encountered it on a smaller scale or a medium or large scale, but it's going to always pop up. So it's very important that you understand that you have to get these things clear on the artist side, and you need to negotiate and talk to your artists and to make them aware and to talk to them and say, all right, who's going to get this clear? How are we going to split this sample? Who's going to eat the sample? Because a lot of times people don't even know who's going to eat the sample. So that becomes an issue, right? So I think that's very, very important of just making sure that, we always have, a great understanding between producer and artist. How's the sample going to be split as it pertains to publishing? Who's going to get it cleared? And whose job that is. Let's see. I've been told that you already have a copyright protection as soon as you're created. So yeah, I mean, you're putting the world on notice that this is your copyright, and you may be extended those protections. But as far as the true protection, which is being able to sue in the court, you don't have those protections, because here again, you can't get in the court without actually having a registered copyright. That's one of the prerequisites. So you need to make sure that you always make sure you have a copyright. Let me see what else we got on samples. What other questions? Let's see. Okay, he won a Grammy. What happens? What happens? Let me see. What happens if you sample but make it available for free? So that's always a tough question because it's like, okay, in that instance, are you infringing upon someone else's rights by publishing it? Are you making money off of it? And I know that this is a common practice. It's really a gray area in the music industry as far as sampling and putting stuff out. But one of the best things to always do is to dictate in the licenses if someone was to purchase a beat. Say a producer comes in and he hear you cooking up and you cooking up with a through the wire sample. Now that's Kanye, but it's also Shaka Khan, so that may be a little difficult. But let's just say you Kanye at that point. Just using him as an example. If the artist walks in and he hear you cooking up and he like, man, you using some loops or you using certain samples, it's very important to always make sure that you dictate, like I just said, to the artist or the producer, y'all come to an agreement as to who is gonna get this sample cleared, how much this is gonna be, and the publishing splits, because like we talked about last week, and Lucid Dreams, right? Well, not last week, but on the last series, Lucid Dreams, Sting took 85% of the song for Lucid Dreams because the song got so hot, but they didn't clear Shape of My Heart, the sample for that. So it's very important that you don't put yourself in a situation where you got the biggest song of your career, but because you or artists didn't clear, said sample, you're not really eating how you're supposed to be eating. That's very, very important. And one of the last things that's very important, and I've been seeing a lot of questions about publishing and different things, is how do you monetize your copyrights? And that'll be the next slide that we get into. How do you monetize your copyrights? Let's see. Yep, that's your revenue flow chart, right? Very, very important, very critical, and I have it here. So this is your author and your composer royalties in flowchart. So, for example, your lyrics, right? And we'll get more into this on the next live stream, and this is going to be talking about music publishing. So your lyrics or the composition, this is how your copyright composition is monetized. One, through sync, right? So that first box right there is sync. And I would advise all of you, if you can, if you're using this on your phone or you're using this on your computer, screen share this and screenshot this so that you could, always have a picture of this in your phone, and you can always know this is how things apply. It actually shows you what streams of revenue that you can get as a producer, as an artist, as a label exec, as a manager. This shows you all of the ways that revenue should come. So the first thing is as a TV show, movie, commercials, video games, which is sync. Some people also consider YouTube as sync because it's video with underlying music or whatever. But you want to make sure that you understand the way to monetize your copyright. You can do it. You can take a song. Say you create a beat, right? And it's a huge song. Like everybody knows this song. Everybody knows, that you got some heat and everybody wants to tap in with you. And now you got music supervisor. I know you all have heard that term, music supervisor. These are people who go out and they look for songs and they look for beats, and they look for just artists and producers to collaborate with to bring their music into their world for whatever film or television show they're producing. Because you own your copyright, this is a way and this is a method for you to monetize your copyright through sync, right? And what'll happen is, like we talked about, they'll pay you a fee for both sides. So if you own a record portion and you own a composition, you own a sound recording and the music composition portion, you'll get 2 fees, and you can also dictate to them how much publishing royalties you're supposed to be receiving, right? So the next way you could do it is through radio, TV, clubs, and live music, right? So radio, as we all know, you have radio, you have your Pandora, you have also your AM, FM, you have your college radio, you have all of these different things, right? And when you put your music out there, a lot of times people don't understand the value of these places because artists generate a lot of streams on Pandora, and they also generate a lot of streams on radio once they get to a certain level. But because you have your copyrights, these are places where you can monetize your copyrights. Another thing that I want to make sure that all of you all have here, which is very important, and a lot of artists have it, but a lot of artists and producers don't have it, is it's called Sound Exchange, right? So what Sound Exchange does, it collects certain royalties and revenues from Pandora, right? And when you go in and you do certain things, they'll collect those royalties for you, and it puts you in a position to monetize your copyright. So that's something that you can always make sure that you look into, do your research on. I would recommend that if you don't have Sound Exchange, you look at it, you figure out and you understand what it is, and you'll see how valuable it is if you have music streaming in certain places. Also, too, composition, so streams, right? That's the middle category, streams. So that's your Spotify, your Apple Music, your Tidal, your Shazam, all of these, YouTube, all of these things. These are places, these are really the main places that people monetize their copyrights. So they put their music out, right, on these DSP platforms. So say you distribute your music through BeatStars, you put your music out, you can monetize your copyrights that way, and then you'll receive revenues from that. And that's another stream of income that allows you to monetize your copyrights. Let me see, another question. Can I write a disclaimer in the box below for not owning the copyright? In the box below for not owning the copyright. I'm trying to figure out how to answer this. Can I write a disclaimer in the box below for not owning the copyright? I get what you're saying. So like in the description, right? A lot of people do this because one, they don't want to get their stuff flagged or taken down. And I didn't go too in depth, but there are certain things, and this is certain things that I really like to talk to you guys during the office hours, and I'll have some of that information for you all at the end. That way we can go in further depth with it, and I'll kind of talk about it a little bit here too. So you have what's called fair use, right? So you have a lot of things that allows you to make sure that you can use certain copyrights and certain things. They're like exceptions to the rule, what I would say. So the main ones is parody, right? So say someone makes a song, right, and you want to remake that song and you want to use it, but you want to make like a humor or a joke or something out of it, you'll be able to use that copyright if you can prove, hey, I'm just using this, as a parody, right? Also, if you're using a copyright for educational or news purposes. So a lot of times people use stuff, they'll take a song or they'll dissect a movie or something like that, but it'll be for a nonprofit or educational purpose or something like that. That's an exception to a lot of copyright rules. So one of the things that you always have to look up is, you can say, hey, I do not own this copyright. I am not perpetrating to be this person. But if you're making money off of it, or if you're receiving some type of revenue, then that may be an issue. So what it's always best to do is to make sure, one, you get a license if you're going to use someone else's work, but also to see whether or not and how you fall within the the fair use and the different protections or exceptions to the copyright rule. I have, definitely King, Swizzer, BeatStars. We're really fine with the distribution. I think you should join the team. The next thing is mechanical rights organizations, or MROs, right? Mechanical royalties. What are mechanical royalties and how do they apply in this situation? A lot of people don't understand mechanical royalties, and they're very, very simple. They go right along with the money you receive from Spotify, which is on the sound recording side. You also receive the money for your publishing and your writer after that sound recording, and then you also receive a mechanical royalty every time that song is played. So back in the day, it used to be like, okay, a mechanical royalty is every time this vinyl is produced. But now, vinyl is a niche thing, and it's not the main way people consume music. But what happens is now, every time a stream is produced, and last time I checked, it was like 0.0 something. It's a crazy point. But those points start to add up, and that money starts to add up. So it's very, very important that you do your research and you look out there and you say, okay, now not only can I monetize my stuff, I can try to find music producers to send my beats and my things to. Not only can I try to hit up local DJs in my area to try to get my music, streamed. Not only can I submit my stuff for Pandora to try to get stuff. Not only can I put it on Spotify, Apple Music, but I can also collect mechanical royalties when my music is played on Spotify and Apple Music. And that's another way to monetize your copyright, to make sure that you're getting other additional sources of revenue. And to be real, most artists generally only focus on the main box, right? Because it's like, oh, that's what everyone knows about. But what happens is the more you grow and the more work you put in, right, the larger that each of these streams of income become, right? So once you add these up, and you look and you say, all right, boom. Now I got all these different sources of revenue that's coming in, like we talked about early. You're no different. This is no different than a piece of real estate. So me, for example, say I own a piece of real estate. I own a rental building. And I got 2 people upstairs, 2 people downstairs, right? And then, I got a garage. So you're going to want to make sure that you got a tenant and somebody in every room. Right? You don't want to just be like, man, I'm just going to get somebody in the master bedroom and that's it. No, you want to have somebody in the master bedroom. So you need to be looking out there for those music supervisors to get your stuff in and just type them in. You'll find them. You want to also be able to, in that second bedroom, what you want to say, okay, boom. Now I need to make sure that I'm getting my stuff on Pandora. I'm trying to, network with certain people to get my music out there. So it's getting played, interactively in radio stations, AM, FM, college, different things like that. The third room you want to have, which is really the biggest room and where a lot of people are hanging out at, is you want to make sure you're getting your streaming stuff going. Boom, mechanical rights organizations. There are really 2 very important ones, and we can drop them down in the chat. Just like, I don't know if people know about these, but I'll share them. There's Harry Fox. And there's Music Reports, right? And these 2 organizations are what collect mechanical royalties. And there's also this new thing called MLC. You all can look that up for yourself, but they also help with that. And when you go in and you look at those different things, that's the 4th bedroom. And the 5th bedroom, which a lot of people don't ignore now, which a lot of people ignore now. But as a producer, as an artist, as a label person, A&R, whatever it may be, who's in this video, this live stream, downloads are frowned upon because a lot of times, there's been a lot of rumors that iTunes is going to get rid of their particular, download thing where people can download everyone to be streaming. But because there's not a lot of activity on the download portion, this is a place where a lot of people who understand the value of downloads and how to market and network themselves, this is another way you can monetize your copyrights and also leverage that to, getting up those charts because it's less competition on this side. So I think this chart is very important. And what you have to do is you have to look at yourself as an artist, as a producer, and you have to say, okay, how do I monetize my stuff? What areas am I monetizing my stuff? Of course, I know I have my licenses. Of course, I know I have my content ID. But am I pushing my stuff? Or am I finding people who can get me in TV? Am I finding people to get me on the radio? Do I collect mechanical royalties? What are my downloads looking like? And by figuring out all of these different things, you're able to make sure that you're collecting as much revenue as possible. So for the most part, that is how you monetize your copyrights, and that shows you the value of owning your copyrights. Blockchain technology is going to revolutionize all of this for our benefit one day in the future. I am a great proponent of that. I think it's kind of difficult now because what has happened, and I think we talked about this the last time. There are these things. And we'll talk about it a little bit more on our next live stream, which is consent decrees. So the United States Department of Justice basically said that ASCAP and BMI cannot collect mechanical royalties. So what happens is you have all of these different organizations handling multiple different things. And for what artists is, they don't understand all of these different streams. So a lot of times things just go uncollected. But like Bufo was saying, with the advent of blockchain technology and the increase of technology, the increase of different types of softwares, you producers are going to create other forms of and means of collection. And what'll happen is all of these things will be streamlined, and you'll be able to get everything in one pot. And a lot of times, what happens is one of the ways that people do this, which is something for you all to think about, and to make sure they're collecting all these particular royalties, is they use what's called publishing administration. I know you all are seeing like, oh, opt-in publishing administration, and depending on what you are and where you are as an artist and what you're comfortable with doing, publishing administration is very valuable because it collects all these things in one pot, and then you're able to focus more so on your artist stuff, but you have somebody out there looking for your best, looking out for your best interest. So for the most part, that's it on that slide. Let's go to the next slide, and then we can kind of wrap everything up. So there's some future topics, guys. The next thing is owning your name and your trademark. That's super, super critical. I really wish everybody that is in here, I want to know, type in the chat right now if you own your name and your trademark. Your artist name, your producer name. If you have a trademark registration for your artist name or your producer name, type in the chat if you do. Let me know. The second thing we're going to be talking about is music publishing, which is very, very important. We get a lot of questions about that. And I think that's probably going to be one of our most critical, episodes, because music publishing is really, really going to be very, very important. The third thing is sound recording royalties. We touched on it a little bit today, but we didn't. I see somebody right here that said they own their name. Trax Phantom says he owns their name, and they have a trademark. The most important agreements you should understand, right? So record contracts. We're gonna actually, we're gonna pull up a contract and just go through certain portions of it, just so we all have a clear understanding as to what these things mean. The most important terms you should include in the agreement. One of the things that we will talk about is works for hire. So a lot of times what you will see in contracts is works for hire. And when you have a copyright and you own a copyright, you have to always determine whether or not it's important for you to maintain ownership, whether or not you're doing a license, or whether or not you're doing a sale, or whether or not you're going to be considered a works for hire. So we'll talk about that. Record labels and music publishers. What are their roles? What do they do? Where do they stand? We're gonna get into all that, and that'll be a lot of things that we kind of go back and forth about. The next thing is lawyers, managers, and agents. What's the job of a lawyer? Like I'm an attorney, a lawyer, or whatever. But what's my job? Like when you meet a lawyer, what's a lawyer's job? Like, or do they get me deals? Do they do this? Do they find me work? What's the job of a manager? What's the job of an agent? Why are all of these people important? And what are some standard industry percentages that they take for, helping you out and doing certain things? And we'll talk about that, those standards. And the last thing, it'll be a wrap up and a recap of protecting my intellectual property. And my goal for this is to be able to allow you all, to have all of these videos, right? So if you have an issue on copyright, you should be able to go back and watch these videos and say, all right, at this particular portion, he talked about these 5 things that I need to do to monetize. Let me see what he said about as it pertains to me getting my song in a movie. Oh, they're offering me to put my beat or my song in a movie, but this ain't right. I own my sound recording and I own my publishing. Shouldn't I be getting 2 licenses? So the purpose of this is to make sure that you always have a resource and a reference, and it's always to make sure that the handouts can be compiled together as a book, and you can have something simple that you can refer to, and it shouldn't be super complex. We can go to the final slide, and then we'll get into some questions. So first thing, I just updated my Instagram name. So my new Instagram is @attorney. I'm typing it in the chat right now. @attorney Kyle, right? So what I like to do is make sure that everyone can have one-on-one with the attorney. So again, I'm an attorney for BeatStars, so I help them, I help support, I help marketing, I help everybody at this great company, and I'm just filling in where they need me and answering questions. But I know a lot of times what happens with these episodes is you may have a burning question, or you may just want to go back and forth, uh, with me. And what we could do is I have it from 12 to 2, so I'm working. But if someone hits me up on Instagram in the DMs, I'll jump on a call with you, and we could just really go back and forth about publishing, go back and forth about copyrights, go back and forth about intellectual property, and you can pick my brain, from 12 to 2. And I actually done that last week with someone, and that's the reason why I explained sound recording on royalties, and also, the composition side of everything, because that was a conversation that we had. So feel free to follow me. Feel free to hit me up, ask me questions, and send me a time between 12 and 2 that works for you on Fridays. And I do it every Friday. We can talk, and we can have, a conversation, and we can go from that. So really, this last portion, I'm done with the slide. It's just any questions y'all have. I mean, we, as much as y'all wanna talk and ask questions, and I appreciate this right here. You're gonna be the biggest attorney in the music industry. Y'all gonna be the biggest artists in the industry, and I'm gonna know y'all. So I'm just appreciative of y'all tuning in and taking an interest in taking your career to the next level. Boofa, I appreciate you for always tapping in. D Lee, I appreciate you for the game. And everybody that y'all see that I'm dropping in, make sure y'all go and follow each other and network and collab and do different things, because we're a community. Y'all can ask questions or whatever y'all want to do. Before we get off, I'll just say a few things. I'm here on behalf of BeatStars and our CEO to make sure that we empower you all to be great. And I don't talk to you all from a place as where you all are, right now. I'm talking to you all from a place of where you will be in 5 to 10 years. So you all are not just regular producers. You all are not beat makers. You all are not bedroom producers. You all are not local artists. You all are not backpack rappers, trap artists, trap producers. All of these titles and labels that people try to put on you to make you feel like you're just a person that leases and works on BeatStars platform. That's not you. Who you are is somebody that's great. Who you are is somebody that's appreciated. And the reason why we do all of these different live series and streams is because we believe in you all, and we want to invest back into you all to let you all know that anything that you do or you think of can be accomplished. I'm a living testament of that. And it's very, very important that even though, copywriting is expensive, trademarking is expensive, taking the time to be on this live stream is expensive, because I know you all have things that you have to do. This is all a part of the investment in yourself. And this, if you don't remember anything else that I said, I'm going to keep saying this, and I want you all to echo this, and I want you all to take this throughout and share this with everybody. What you all are doing is going to change the way that people do everything. This is culture shifting. You all are culture shifting, and your work, your effort, your time is no different. Y'all like, man, I'm tired of this dude talking about real estate. It's no different than a piece of real estate. A person that has 1,000 pieces of real estate, and they're making $1,000 a month per piece of real estate, which equals to $1 million a month, times 12 is $12 million. If you got 1,000 beats, if you got 1,000 songs, or if you got 103 albums like Gucci Mane, all with 20 songs on each of them, and you're able to generate that type of thing, then your intellectual property will be valued as such. So just make sure that you all keep going, keep pushing, keep fighting, keep being the best. And yeah, that's it. And we'll talk soon.